Around 5 years ago, during lockdown, one of the biggest blockades to my fat loss journey was not understanding cravings, and it's got nothing to do with willpower. As a coach, I see one of these problems consistently when John loses 10 pounds and then he can't help but self-sabotage his own progress with late night snacking. But cravings aren't so much about food and desires, they are more about internal blockades, thought processes, beliefs that ruin our journey. There was a time where I would finish dinner, feel relatively full, and then within 30 minutes, I was snacking on whatever I could find. Some people I work with think they have a willpower problem, but they're either not eating enough on their cut, or restricting the wrong things. It's usually because they have unsustainable beliefs around food. Usually, the less you're allowed of something, the more you want of it. And usually this is around a very specific kind of food. This is usually a sign of very low-level orthorexia. When people perceive a food as bad or it's going to ruin their nutrition plan, that can sometimes be an indicator to lean into the food more and incorporate it. In my training blueprint, I run through the 80-20 principle, where around 20% of your nutrition can be through whatever you want. And this breaks the issue around, oh, I can't eat fast food 20% of the time because it's going to ruin my diet, or I can't eat bread, or I can't eat fruit, or I can't eat dairy because it bloats me. No one food is going to ruin your nutrition, especially if you use it more and you actually enjoy it, whether it's a guilty pleasure or a healthy food. And when you incorporate it, you will find that your plan is way more sustainable. If you like creamer in your coffee, then have creamer in your coffee. Just incorporate it into the overall calories. Now, I'm not going to go into a rant about if it fits your macros because that has its own problems. But if you notice a specific kind of food or time of day that you're eating and you think that you shouldn't do that, just remember that calories in, calories out is king overall, and the foods you eat don't matter anywhere near as much as managing that. If you find that you want to eat more during the start of the day, then good, do that, plan ahead, and incorporate the majority of your calories, around 2/3, towards the start of your day. Most people I talk to, though, they like to eat more at the end of the day. Good, do that. Section off 2/3 of your calories towards the end of the day. And don't worry about eating late at night making you gain weight. That is a myth. So willpower is overrated. Although willpower is like a muscle, it is something that is worked and built over time and can certainly help the process. Understanding your behavior can shortcut your success. Something else I want to talk about is your own thoughts. Pay more attention consciously to what you are thinking right now, and also what you are believing and what you are feeling. If you feel or think immediately in the evenings, let's say as an example, that you need something sweet, then try observing the thought first before acting on it. We all know that our desires don't always relate to our goals, but if you can look at your thoughts and acknowledge it from a third-person perspective, write it down, this is something I like to do, then this is allowing your brain to feel acknowledged, but without acting on the desire. Other people I've worked with, they found success with just pausing and breathing in deeply 3 times. If you're letting your mind run and you're stressed and you're not breathing deep into your belly, then this is usually the time when the monkey brain can take over our desires. So whenever you get a craving, pause, and pause for at least 10 minutes before you act on it. This is something I learned on the Diary of a CEO podcast, actually, is before you take any action which seems risky or is not aligned to your goals, then pause for 10 minutes before acting on it. And promise yourself, in 10 minutes from now, if I still want to do it, then I will act on it and I will incorporate it into my nutrition plan for the day. You'll often find that 10 minutes from now, it's subsided, because by the time you've distracted yourself with something else, or you've reasoned yourself why you shouldn't do the thing that you want to do, 10 minutes is a long time. And over time, you should be extending this to 11 minutes, then 12 minutes, then 15 minutes. I think it's called the 10-minute rule. What you'll find is you are consciously delaying your subconscious to act on desires. And eventually, as you get better and better at this, you'll be waiting 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and promising yourself, I'll do that in an hour. If I still want to eat that thing that I want to eat, I'll do it in an hour. This is a muscle that is built over time. But before you do any of that and you delay doing things that aren't aligned to your goals, just pause, write it down, and look at it from a third-person perspective. Try to acknowledge to yourself as much as possible what's going on. Maybe even tell your partner about it. Tell them what you're craving right now and why. Because by doing this process, you've made the craving go from this to this. Something else I want to talk about is rewiring yourself and your environment for the craving. If it's out of sight and out of mind, and it's not even in your shopping basket in the first place, then it's a lot easier to reach your goals when your environment fits your mindset. Pause for a second and analyze, when you have a craving, what is the exact thing that you do that leads you to eating that food that you don't want to eat. Maybe you get up from your chair, you go to the kitchen, you check the fridge a certain number of times, you browse the cupboard, and then you go back to the fridge, and then you make a choice. If this is the same process that you do every time, then just try breaking that cycle. You can put things that are out of sight and out of mind, put it upstairs, put it somewhere that's inconvenient or strange. Look, I really love eating popcorn. I can eat popcorn all day, and usually I can rack up at least 500 calories in the amount of popcorn that I like to eat. So what did I do? I put the bag of popcorn upstairs so that it's out of sight, out of mind. And if I really want to incorporate it into my food overall, I can go upstairs, I can bring it back downstairs, weigh it out, and then put it back upstairs. And this is way less convenient than just putting it in the cupboard, which is about 6 steps away from my desk. Another thing that we love to do is to incorporate foods that you genuinely enjoy and make them healthy. So instead of just eating dry steak twice a week, you can eat seasoned steak 2 to 3 times per week. Make your current foods that you're already eating way more enjoyable. And by the way, pizza twice per week is better than pizza 4 times per week and sending yourself on a guilt spiral. So anything that you can actively incorporate is going to suit you better in the long run, because 80% perfection 100% of the time is better than 60% perfection, because 80% perfection 100% of the time is better than 100% perfection 20% of the time. You'll notice from all these points that I haven't mentioned logging calories on your app a certain way. That's something that's very factual and technical when it comes to losing fat. A lot of this is just behavior stuff. Something else I want to talk about is to treat every step of the way as a lesson. If you lost weight, then analyze that week or those last couple of weeks and look if there's anything that you did differently that you can apply, which will allow you to continue that success. If you didn't lose the weight that you wanted to lose, or you went on a bit of a spiral, then look at what led up to that spiral. Understand that you will have challenges, and not just challenges, but actual problems along the way where your diet doesn't go as planned. I hate that word diet. I use the word nutrition, so I'll correct myself there. Every time you binged or gave in, or you didn't live up to your own expectations, which, by the way, are probably way too strict, because you're seeing this as a long-term solution, not a quick short-term fix. So the sooner you see this as a long-term journey, the quicker you're going to reach your goals, because cramming in this process into the space of 2 months is probably going to be way too rapid of a personality change for some people. So every time you hit a blockade, look at why it happened. And every time you hit success and you were satisfied with your progress, look at why that happened also. A quick one on timing. This kind of links into lesson here. Most cravings that we have and issues with our nutrition are existential. If your work is unfulfilling, if you're really stressed out at home, or if you are not making the progress that you want to make outside of your normal life, then cravings will spike. I've noticed for myself that on holidays or times which I am unable to train, maybe I'm sick, my nutrition gets worse, not better, even though I've got more time to myself. Even though I'm less tired from training, even though I'm not stressing my body and forcing it to recover with training. On those days or weeks which I am less active, my nutrition gets worse also. And that's because this is something that I've had to fix in my brain. I used to believe that, well, if I'm not training as much, then the food isn't going to be used for recovery or good purposes anyway. So what's the point? I can just eat what I want a little bit more. This is obviously a very harmful belief, but it's something that I was aware of. It's something that I wrote down every time I felt it happen to me or thought it. And now I can actually predict when to be more cautious of my own nutrition, because on those days, or maybe a week or two when I'm on a business trip, where I'm not able to train as much as I want to, I am even more cautious of my own behaviors, and I can plan ahead by incorporating junk food, whatever that I want to incorporate. So instead of going completely off piste and falling off the wagon, I can still sustainably reach my goals. I can still stay in shape. I won't gain a load of fat for that week that I'm away. And this is something that I've worked on myself. It's something that I can control now. Maybe this is a situation which applies to you. You may have a completely different behavior. I can help you figure out what that behavior is and why it's stopping you from reaching your goals. If any of this was useful or it's inspired some action in your own journey, then let me know in the comments. I have a free muscle building webinar coming up where we're going to talk about stuff like this. And last webinar I did, we got a load of questions about fat loss. So it could be really valuable to especially business owners who are under way more stress at the moment and want to reach their physique goals while still managing craving. As next steps, I'd like you to try and understand a feeling that you have during a certain time of the day, why you think you have that feeling, how you've acted on it in the past, and how you will act on it going forward. Because it's not just as simple as I'm just going to eat less. Maybe it's because the food you don't want to eat is always in reach. Maybe you think it's a certain type of food that's going to make you gain the weight. That's fine. You can and probably should still eat it because it's something that you can then control instead of hide away from. And whenever you hit a blockade, always take away some sort of lesson. If you've got any questions, let me know. I loved talking about this. I'll see you in the next one.